first boat, which was way too narrow, and it was like a 4-hour balancing act. And I got back and I was crying, and my abs hurt, my legs hurt, and I gotta get one of those things. And so, but I've got this real bad habit of not being smart, and so I wanted to do a kayak trip. I decided I'd been a rescue swimmer for like 10 years, and then I made cheap, and they put me at the school, and then I got a commission as a warrant officer. I'm like, well, I'm taking leave for like a month, and I'm gonna have fun for like a month as like a present to myself for, not getting dead as a swimmer. So I'm gonna kayak down to Chesapeake Bay. I'll start up at Elk Neck State Park, and I'll end up at Fort Story. And I had worked for months on this checklist of things I want to do and where I want to go and what my plan is. And I had cached food and batteries and stuff at different Coast Guard stations I could stay at. And my checklist, I'm on the beach at Fort Story like 3 weeks before I'm supposed to leave, and I've got everything checked off on my list, except for the first one, which is buy a kayak and learn how to paddle. But I didn't let that slow me down. So the next day I went and bought a kayak, and I think I put about 2 hours into it. And I successfully did I bought a video, did like one roll in my pool, and went, okay, I'm ready. And I went up to Elk Neck and put in. And there's like a half-hour story between then and the next 3 days, but I made it to Kent Narrows, and the crabbers are like telling me, you go out and we'll tackle you, and we're not going out, and shouldn't be alive. It was a white-knuckled fight for my life for 3 days. And so I decided to get smart, and I'd go down to the Intercoastal. I was going to ride the Intercoastal, the canal down to the Sound. They go, well, that'll be easy, because I was fighting winds and bad weather the whole time. It'll be a nice, easy run through the canal, and I could always pull over and stop. There's nowhere to stop on that canal, nowhere. And so that was like a 12-hour day, and so I did 5 straight days in my boat, and it sat ever since then, and I went back in the water today. And I hated boats. I live on a boat now. And if you knew me, that's really unlike me, because I always hated boats. Because every time I was on a boat, it was either sinking, or upside down, or on fire, or something. I'm like, boats suck. I hate boats. Every time, someone's always hurt. Why would you want to go boating? And then a friend of mine said, hey, Mario, let's go sailing. I'm like, no, why? And she said, I said, it'll be like someone's going to get hurt. She says, no, we'll just have wine and cheese. And, I'm like, really? So we went out, and this woman, she was my landlady. She took me sailing like every weekend. I really started to like boats, and now I love them. And I realized that the people, see, I'm going to talk to you about rescue, but I never meet you people on the job. I don't meet, that's what I realized. There's a certain group of people that I meet, and then there's a certain group that I don't. And I was asking, like, when's the last time CPA kayakers had a major accident? Never. Because you guys are the safety nuts. You're not going to get in an accident. So,
yeah, we did have a rescue out of Smith Island in the not too distant past.
But was it one of your members, or did you do the rescue?
It was a member, but they did everything right. They just got stuck out there without radio contact after dark and in the.
But you guys wouldn't sanction a solo run down the Chesapeake Bay after 2 weeks of training.
No.
Okay, so I was trying to get myself rescued, like really bad. But I figured if anyone was due, like they owe me one, right? They owe you one, right? You get the call.
That wouldn't be an
you owe me one,
traffic to go.
so I wasn't that worried about it. But there was a real lesson relearned there in that anymore with GPS and with EPIRBs and the way technologies run a rescue and the quality of the boats, kayaks or otherwise, or sailboats. Steve Callahan got hit by a whale like off of the UK and spent 76. He wrote a book called Adrift, 76 days in a life raft. The average time to rescue now is 247 minutes. If you're going to get rescued, it's 247 minutes until either an amber boat or a Coast Guard boat or an asset's on scene. No one's going to write a book, 247 minutes adrift. It's not. Right. It's just. I got thirsty. What are you going to write? But the needle does not move. The needle has not moved really. If you look at the Coast Guard stats anyway on wreck boating, the needle hasn't moved much as far as the average number of people who just don't make it back. All right, so there was a 5-year span between 2000 and 2005 where there was 2,000 400 and something deaths and 3,200 persons unaccounted for. The Coast Guard doesn't pronounce death in the stats. We just never found them. And I got asked, how many kayakers have I gone out and gotten? I don't remember, a lot. But I didn't get a lot more than I remember getting. I did a lot of searches where I came back with nothing or an empty hull. Or there's the boat, but not the kayak. And that needle doesn't move much. And I've developed this theory that I happen to agree with. That what it is people forget where they're going. It's about a fair estimation of the encountered peril. If you guys, any Moby Dick fans or Melville, Starbucks, I'll have no man on my boat who's not afraid of the whale. And he's talking about that the problem is not a fair estimation of what you're about to encounter, or that a fearless man's a far more dangerous comrade than a coward, he said. So you have to be afraid of this a little bit, just a little. And that sort of takes the fun out of boating. But where'd we go today? We went kayaking today, right? So, you know, so if I ask, somebody says, where'd you go? And I go, well, we went up the North River, or the South River. Where are we?
South River.
We went to South River. We went north up the South River.
Which organization are you in?
Right, yeah. Port, starboard, yeah, right. So, but that's, you know, we went kayaking, right? That's not where we went. That's what we did. Where'd we go? The last time you went out on a boat, where'd you go? No one knows, right? I get the answer. I went fishing, or we went down to the bay and just did some water skiing, whatever. And that's not true. That's what you did. Where we went today was to completely surround ourselves on all sides by something that will slowly but surely suck the life out of us if we get in it. Now that takes the fun out of kayaking, and I get it. But that's what it is. And the colder the water gets, the more true that is, right?
Pretty warm.
Yep. You know, we're designed to live in air. I did a SAR case once 400 miles offshore, and I get the same question: how deep was the water? After here, I don't know, over my head. I can't breathe either. But it won't support you for long, okay? And also where you're going, particularly when you're kayaking, and this is a pretty milky run, but on my runs, where I was when I was off at, say, Chesapeake Beach, there's no beach there, I found out. That's ruined my plan. Where I was about 4 hours from definitive care if I got hurt. Because I'm not at my house where I call 911 and in 15 minutes the basic life support's there and I'm in the hospital in 22. I'm at a place where if I get hurt, if I decide to beach it on the rocks and climb up and snap my ankle, I'm really in the middle of nowhere. And someone has to know I'm hurt, know where I am, come get me. So all the time, the Coast Guard all the time goes to pick up, say, diabetic children, because where they were going was a 2-hour fishing trip. We're just going out for a couple hours fishing. So we didn't bring the insulin, because what could go wrong on a boat at sea? Right? But they didn't go fishing. Where they went was 4 hours from the nearest hospital. And so now, when they run aground, what would be like a 6-hour wait for the tide or something turns into a reckless fight for the kid's life because they don't have his insulin. And now we're doing a medevac on a boat that's fine. However, they didn't remember where they were going. My point is a fair estimation of the encounter peril helps you prepare for it. It changes the way you prepare for everything else, and that's what gets missed. It doesn't get missed by this group. Sorry, I'm not really going to preach to the choir. But that's what the problem is. That's the last thing left to move the needle, is to convince people of where they're going and then what they're going in. And what are you going in? So you're going in a boat. What's another way to put boat? Something that's been letting down its owner since recorded history. Right? I live on a boat. I live on a 32-foot wellcraft. It's cramped, but I love it. It's a really nice fiberglass hull with 7 holes drilled in the bottom on purpose. Right? The only thing keeping the ocean out of my boat is hose clamps. Hose clamps. $2.85 hose clamps keep the water. I don't care how nice the hull is. I've got 14 because I double up because I'm a chicken. Hose clamps keeping the water out of my boat. I look at those things all the time because that's the only thing keeping the sea out of my boat. It's not the hull, it's the hose clamp. And so those kinds of things change the way you prepare. So this is why I think, I noticed, I was like, well, do I bring my spray skirt or not? Then I realized, oh, it's CPA. Everyone's wearing a spray skirt. Even though we're out here on this milky run, and I'm going to be hot, and I was whining about it, but I put it on because I don't want to get in trouble. Right? So, but that's okay. A little over the top's okay, isn't it? So, the difference between the people we go and get and the people we don't go and get, with the exception of some medevacs, just some medevacs. If someone, this guy goes out and slips, falls, and breaks his arm on the way out because dad guns it, doesn't tell anybody, or he just slips and breaks an elbow, it's just what you get. You're in an unstable platform, and sometimes hurts what you get on the water. An appendicitis, an unaccounted for appendicitis. Suddenly you're out, a commercial fisherman out there gets appendicitis. That's just what you get. That just happens. But when I go out and get a person who's on their third cardiac arrest on a commercial fishing boat, maybe we're making bad risk decisions to go out. In almost every other SAR case I've done, all of them except for some medevacs, you can trace back to a bad decision made by the captain before leaving the dock. It was made not bringing the insulins, a decision he made at the dock that caused the SAR case. Forgetting the boat plug is something he missed at the dock before taking the first line. Not having enough gas, not knowing exactly where he was going. These are decisions made at the dock. And I think it's because boats have gotten so nice. There's a boat at my marina called Shore Girl, and the owner let me come on, and you step on the thing and there's no way you know you're on a boat anymore. Marble on the tile on the floor, and marble countertops, and mahogany and teak and leather piping and leather trim, and it's the most gorgeous spot I've ever seen. And there's no way, and I think boats might have been safer when they dripped on you a little bit, because you knew you were on a boat. And so it gets real easy just to hop in the thing and go. Now in a group like today where there's 20 of us, 30 of us out there on the water, it's easy to feel real safe, and you are real safe. And we're over the top safe with it. The drive here was a lot more dangerous than the paddle, yeah?
Yep.
By a huge factor. But going by yourself or in groups of two, things change. And so if you remember that where you're going is to completely surround yourself by something deadly and an unreliable thing that lets down its owners, okay, I'm gonna get a float plan. I'm gonna tell someone where I'm going. I'm gonna map it out. I have my float, and then I'm not sure if kayakers are big into float plans. I know that in 15 years of rescue, I've never seen one worth looking at. I've never seen a float plan. Now that may be an indication of the kind of people that make float plans don't need rescue, because they're covering other bases too. But you don't account for it all the time. So I think everyone should have a decent float plan. On a day like today, I'm not worried about a float plan. My float plan's the 12 other people around me. But by myself, my float plan for the bay, as silly as it was, if my EPIRB went off, the float plan included a photograph of the top side of my boat, the bottom side of my boat, a photograph of what I was wearing. I was wearing the same thing every day, same color clothes, same color shirt, my height, weight, body fat, medical condition, any meds I'm on. Where am I going? Where might I bail out to? What radio am I going to, what equipment do I have on board? I have the ability to start a fire. It's everything I ever wanted to see in a float plan, but never had. Because all those things inform the intuition of the searcher. So, what we're going to talk about, since you're kayakers, and I think this is mostly what you're interested in, then we'll just open wide up for questions. I've got 2,000 hours looking out of boats and aircraft looking for stuff on the water. I get a pretty good bead on what shows up and what doesn't, and what works and what doesn't. So we're going to talk about the biggest problem you guys have if you exit your boat and can't get back in it, or you can't move it through the water anymore, right? Is how do you get seen? Being found's about being seen, period. So what gets seen? Who carries flares? Do you carry night flares and day flares? I'm not a big fan of flares, I'm just saying it right now. But anybody carry smokes, like the smoke flares for daytime? No one? No kidding, the daytime flare, for a searching aircraft, for someone searching for you, the day flare shows up better at night than the night flare. Because what does it put out? It puts out orange smoke, right? No, it puts out really, really hot orange smoke. And we're not looking out with the naked eye. We have night vision goggles on and infrared. And that big hot orange smoke shows up better and lasts longer and creates a better trail than the night end of the flare ever does. The night end of the flare is 22 seconds and it's gone because you're putting it out. The day end's a big swath of wide, fat, orange, hot smoke that shows up for a long time. And so as a searcher, that's a better signal to me. that's going to last longer for you. And it's not talked about or thought about. But it's true. It's hot orange smoke. 20 years ago, it was a day signal. Because we weren't looking at night or we couldn't see anything anyway, and we were hoping for a night flare. But we're looking with different eyes now, right? All right. But flares and nothing says come over here and look at me like a flashlight doing this. I have 2 Pelican lights too. 2 is 1, 1 is none. I got 2 little tiny Pelican lights in my life jacket. It's the tiny thing. They're $8 with the AAA's in it. It's cheap. But on night vision goggles or infrared, nothing says come. I have turned the aircraft. The aircraft has done a what is that over a waving flashlight more than anything else. The only time we've done it when it wasn't a waving flashlight was when it was, I thought it was a flashlight. It was a guy that had lost all battery power to everything, had burned up all his flares signaling in the blind, bad idea. And the last thing he had, he was a smoker. So he lit his life jacket on fire. So we could see it. I'm like, gutsy move, man. That's a gutsy move. That's an all in. I'm all in. He burned his fingers. But we saw him. It looked like a flashlight, so we went and looked at it. But a waving flashlight's it's a great unaccounted for. No one thinks about it. But that'll turn the aircraft. That'll turn the boat, all right? But those are active signals. What about passive signals? I mean, besides the boat itself, somebody asked me, well, you know, what's the best color to see? The British did this research, it's hot pink. So then the next question I get, well, what's the second best color? And it's weird, white's pretty good. White's pretty good on a calm sea, which is when you have all your problems, right? No, you have your problem on white caps, in which case the bottom of a white kayak looks a lot like a white cap. That's a lot harder to see. I've been out there in the middle of the ocean and seen Dixie cups and said, what is that? When it's flat calm, and I've been out there when it's rough here in the bay and flown over a guy in a dinghy 3 times and not seen him. Right? He said, you flew over me 3 times. Like, I got you on the 4th. What do you want? It's hard to get seen out there. It's a big ocean and you're small. Okay? So there's some things you can do. Flares are okay. There's that new laser flare that people are into. I've seen it. It worked great, but I was looking for a laser flare. Right? And it was someone that knew not to point it at me. If you point it at me, it's a whole different experience for us. So I like passive signals that are and that's not as passive as you'd like it to be, and the batteries can go out. In my very unofficial Coast Guard endorsement, I really like rescue streamers. Nothing in the ocean is a long straight line. A rescue streamer is a long straight line. RescueStreamer.com. It's a piece of plastic that floats on the surface of the water about 22 to 35 feet long, and it's wide. You rip it open, it unrolls itself, and it's a big, long, orange straight line. Nothing else in the ocean is a big, long, orange straight line. So it's a good passive signal. You can let it go and forget it. It's going to be there, and it's got reflective tape on it, so there's some night visibility to it. But it's a great passive signal that makes you bigger in the water. So I like those. Strobe lights are fine. Lights of any kind at night are fine. Any kind of light are fine.
Dye pen?
Dye pen, yeah, but yes and no. Dye's great. But again, it depends on sea state. I've seen it in sea states where it washes out and you don't see much. You know, and I've seen it where like out here it'd be great, I suppose. If the sun's out, it'd be great. At night, it'll look a little different to us, but not much.
That sick green is almost the color of the water some days.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so, and it's so rare anymore. And there's something to be said for the intuition of the searcher. And they're not looking for it anymore. They're really not.
How do the strobes that people are likely to wear work with you?
Well, they certainly say come. If we see the strobe, we go look at it. Right. It doesn't have to be flashing SOS.
And it shows up better in infrared or night vision.
Sure.
Because we put a pair of them up like that on the mark, come into, we had a